In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
Capricola cappuccino. Capricorn cappuccino. Oh, Jack's gonna love that. That Capricorn cappuccino.
The cappuccino corn?
Oh, hey, Jack. Yeah, they decided that today is astrology and mixology day. And so you get to choose your favorite sign. I think I'm going to go with the purple zodiac.
Oh, wow, the purple zodiac. Is that... Don't tell Jerry Falwell, but wasn't he the one? Or was Pat Robertson that got on the purple Teletubby years ago? Said he was gay.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Like, they were given the purple Teletubby crap, weren't they? Because right. You know, if you can only single out one Teletubby, it's got to be the purple one, doesn't it? He just rubs you the wrong way.
My bigger issue was the fact that it was a humanoid that was here to try and teach children things from a far-off land. It's just like, why couldn't he appear as a human?
Are you talking about Jerry Falwell, or are you talking about the Teletubby?
Just like, well, they're both actually in some ways. I don't remember whether it was Jerry or Pat Robertson, but one of them was giving him hell to the Teletubbies.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah.
And then things.
I just kind of wanted to say, so look at the thing. Do you really think that there's an actual conscious sexual preference involved in its existence? I'm thinking not. Just check some of the behavior. Have you watched the show, Pat, or Jerry, whichever one it was? But no, he was, the one thing I will say about good old Pat and the 700 Club, the man, he was great for a soundbite every so often, and his convictions on things were just, I admire people who are staunch in their convictions, and he definitely qualifies. I remember when Hurricane Katrina was barreling towards New Orleans, and he just, no reservation at all, looked into the cameras and said, the hurricane is coming because of the sin and deprivation that's occurring in that city. God is coming to cleanse the Big Easy. It's not going to be so easy now, is it? And I'm just thinking, oh my God, Pat, I mean, only you would come on television, look the world, look 20 million people in the eyeballs through a lens and say that shit. It's just like, oh my God. Satanic panic was, of course, all the rage in the 80s, and there was a lot of concerns over devil music and all these different nefarious intents that were swirling about, just starting to sort of brim in music and artwork and things that kids would be attracted to. And of course now it's a fucking free-for-all. Nobody gives a shit. There's pentagrams and devil horns and shit all over the place. I mean, there's flat out Satanism that's just peddled every day. It's no big deal because, of course, the Christian root in our society has really sort of died off, it seems like. It's kind of branched into its own, they don't really push it in your face as much anymore, but it was very prolific back in those days. And so anyway, I had an interest in music that had a satanic bent at the time, but I also listened to Christian rock at the same time because I was just interested in the music. I could figure out for myself what the lyrics were telling me just fine. I don't need Slayer to actually decide what persuasion I am theologically. I can figure that out for myself. I was just interested in the music for the sound because to me, that's what music is. It's only a small part, lyrics. But anyway, Bob wrote a book about the dangers of this, and he put me onto some great records, I'll have to say, because he had a whole chapter warning about which bands and things
to stay away from.
I got to try these guys. These guys have died. They got to be.
Isn't that how it always goes?
He's a bona fide exorcist, though. The man literally makes a living, apparently, by exorcising demons. He's been doing it for decades now. He's been out there a long time. I find it fascinating. You know, I don't know anything about his personal life, or clearly he's, you know, very Occidental with his beliefs, and that's fine, you know, whatever. But he's an interesting guy. That whole thing, it's kind of like the psychic phenomenon. You know, I've talked to my own shrink about this before, and it always makes them nervous, you know, because, you know, they're coming from the stance that anything like that is just your brain is broken. You know, there's a problem with you if you even slightly believe in any of the unseen miracles that may unfold around us. That's just, you know, it's like feeling like apophenia or pareidolia means anything. If you tip off your counselor or shrink, if there's the right degree on the wall, they're going to press you to no end to basically say, well, you're broken, because that's what they're taught in school is, well, your brain doesn't work right because you're assigning meaning to things that shouldn't have meaning. And yet, isn't that what life itself is truly all about in its thaumaturgy at the end of the day, is that we assign meaning to things because it is a miracle. So as soon as we recognize it for being the miracle it is, suddenly we're broken in the brain. This is what modern psychology has done to us, in my opinion. But anyway, yeah, so I have spoken to him before about the psychic phenomenon and how, look, in my experience, as I've said, I think on the podcast before, I don't think you want to go too far down that hole. You know, I think that psychics, a lot of them are well-intentioned, and I think they're doing what they feel they've been directed to do, but they can't truly see or know everything. Even the greatest of clairvoyants that I've run across are still missing things, and they'll tell you that. They'll literally say, well, I can only see part of it, or I can see this piece clearly, but then there's like a whole bunch of pieces that I can't see. So it's almost like putting together a jigsaw puzzle if you really want to go from one to the other. But the idea is for you to walk through life and experience it for yourself as it unfolds. So you put the jigsaw puzzle together in a natural order. But I guess there's nothing wrong with getting a little help if you feel like you need it. But in talking with him about it in a pragmatic way, I told him, I said, I was drawn to it again and again, not only because there was a side of me that certainly believed or wanted to believe what I would be told, but there is a certain validity to the phenomenon itself. Something happened within that space every time I would have a reading. And I can't explain it entirely, but there was something palpable about it. There was something real about the experience that was unexplainable. And it didn't necessarily match up with the fact that everything they said came true or was correct. It wasn't like that classic gypsy, or, you know, you're not supposed to say that anymore, whatever, you know, the soothsayer over the crystal ball thing. It wasn't like that, you know, telling you that your future was this, or telling you things that they shouldn't know about you. There was something else going on. And so what you're talking about with Bob Larson and, you know, the whole exorcism thing.
Well, I have to stand corrected. It was actually Benny Hinn who was the guy that I was referring to, and he was kind of the
deal.
He was the healer that would touch people and they would convulse.
But if you've gone down that rabbit hole, read any books, watched any specials, if you have enough information, I've never been to one of those things myself. It's kind of scary for me. There seems to be a certain validity to that phenomenon. Something goes on within people that are, you know, quote unquote, possessed. What's actually happening to them, how they get that way, and what actually it is that may rid them of that, I don't know. I really honestly don't know that I want to go down that road too far. It's kind of spooky territory for me. I wasn't placed here to exorcise those demons necessarily, but I feel like it's the same thing. I feel like it's another one of those phenomenon where it's easy to look at from the outside and say, well, it's all hogwash, it's bullshit. But then once you step over the line and really start to actually give it a little bit of, you know, credence, it's once you start looking at it through the lenses of, okay, this is what's actually unfolding. Well, what is happening? Because there are plenty of people that they're not involved in hoaxes. They're not paid actors that are part of the show. They've truly had something inside of them, they feel like, that needed to come out, and it either got out or didn't based on these things that were performed. So it's fascinating. I love stuff like that, though.
Well, Benny Hinn kind of also got into a little bit of controversy. Inside Edition, do you remember that TV show?
Oh, yeah.
In 1993, there was a employee who faked being healed by him. And I think that that's kind of always in 1993, Benny Hinn lived in a reported $700,000 Orlando home and had a few different sports cars to his name. And, it seems like that's always kind of where the onion starts to unravel, is you start to have this fame and you start to have these people who are wildly successful doing, God's work on earth. And not to say that everyone is in that same vein, but this employee of Inside Edition faked being healed from cerebral palsy. And I vaguely remember that. And I feel like that was kind of where then I think they kind of pushed him aside. But he's has various organizations that he's contributed to, and Trinity Broadcasting, there's another name from the past. It seems like that has, I don't know, maybe that was just kind of the days of broadcast television. Maybe that I just don't gravitate towards that as much as, or I don't notice that as much as I used to.
Well, I think the kind of the mother lode, if you will, the bag of gold that's waiting to be discovered, the what would you say, I guess, not the Rosetta Stone necessarily, but really the nucleus of this, the treasure that's buried underneath all of these tangibilities that we worry about when we hear about things like this. You talk about healing, and there have been stories of guys, and there's plenty of these. You can look them up online. They've been out there for years, too. It's not a new phenomenon. There are stories of guys who will get death sentences from their doctor, 30 days to live, 2 weeks even in some cases, completely terminal, done over, medicine. Traditional medicine has written them off. There is no coming back. You are physically going to depart, and soon, and you need to get your affairs in order or do whatever to enjoy your last days, because that's it. And then the one that always comes to mind, and again, I know there are multiple stories like this from all around the world. The one guy barricaded himself inside of his hospital room or his house or something like that, and watched as many funny movies as he possibly could, and literally laughed himself back into remission from a totally gone, stage 6 or whatever it is in the highest DEFCON order for a human life had been served. That was it. He was done, and he came back from that. And there are also stories about people that have done that with things like meditation, but they always kind of have to sequester themselves. They go away, or it seems like they spend that time. And what it seems to me is happening is there's a belief that is central to all of this. There's the belief that I'm going to live, and the funny movies or the meditation or whatever it might be is just the instrument. It's the mechanism through which that actually occurs, but it's the belief that has to happen, and it's that will to actually live. And so it's whatever you believe is so, and the belief is so powerful that it literally can overcome a terminal illness that has gone that far. And I think it's the same thing that happens to a degree with the psychic phenomenon. There's a lot more variables, I think, but with the healing, it's pretty straightforward. I've come here to be healed. And I think if somebody puts their hand on your head, whether they have some kind of divine ability to do that or not, if you truly believe that that's what you want and that that's what's going to happen, it seems to happen, doesn't it? We all have instances where we thought, gosh, I don't think this is possible. But as soon as the belief slips in, the next thing you know, it does. And that goes to the philosophy or the thought, I guess, the theory that really our thoughts make our material world, that whatever we truly do believe is the design of our outside framework. And I think that in itself is incredibly fascinating, because what's wrong then? It seems like we're all wishing for all of these things. I mean, it's kind of like Bruce Almighty, the first day he's God, he gets 70 million requests to win the lottery, and there aren't even that many people in the general, greater Buffalo area, so it's like but there can only be, in a lot of weeks, there is no winner. So how is that determined? They never really get into that, but they sort of slight to, well, there is such a thing as a random order to the universe, so there is such a thing as luck. But of course, it's within his power to grant them a winning lottery ticket if he so chooses. So I don't know. There's so many doors that opens up. But to me, when we get into healing and faith healers, that's kind of what is central to it, in my opinion, is it rests upon the actual power for us to create our own reality. And through the vehicle of this person that we feel is going to heal us, we make that happen.
Yeah, and the snake pastors, I think that's where I would draw the line. I don't think I could. I don't think
people.
Yeah, I have a hard enough time as it is being in like a school gymnasium with the reptile man, let alone, going to a snake pastor. I'm looking online. There's these people in Africa. One pastor is spraying his followers with insecticide for healing. There's another man who is claiming to turn petrol into pineapple juice. Then, of course, you have the snake pastor in South Africa who also used pesticide healing rituals. Yeah, I mean, people are finding their healing in various avenues, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but again, I think it's all caught up in whatever it is that you believe. And then there are people, it seems like, you could make the argument and say, well, Jack, but there's people that have believed in everything that they bought from late night television that was going to make them smarter or make them slimmer or make them, and that never happens. Well, I can't explain it to you. I don't know. All I know is that it would seem to me that something takes over, something actually, because there are cases like this. There are people who have been sick or afflicted with something or other that can't just be gotten rid of by taking a pill or with enough rehab or therapy. It is a permanent condition or it is a terminal condition. And whether it's, again, locking oneself in a room and keying in on laughter or meditation or prayer, or going to a healer and having them lay their hands upon you and go through all that, they're healed. And there is no actual explanation for it medically. It's just, well, they'll just tell you, well, that's a coincidence. That's what the doctor's going to tell you when you go in and say, hey, doc, remember you gave me 2 weeks to live. Now I'm back because I went and saw that healer up in Wichita Falls, and look at me now. And they'll do their testing and they'll say, well, Don, it appears you're in remission. It's just one of those things that happens. You're an anomaly. You're 1 in a million. Congratulations. Now pay us all the money you owe us. So I don't know. I think maybe the real important factor there is to just, before you are so dismissive of just anything as being a hoax or a scam or a fraud, take a look at it for what the outcome is, and then think about what's really making that happen. Sure, there's plenty of charlatans. You ever seen the movie with Steve Martin? I can't remember what it's called, but he's a faith healer driving around with his caravan in the Midwest.
Oh.
I believe. I want to say it's called Leap of Faith. He does, as Steve, I'm a big fan of Steve Martin's. As usual, he does a great job in that. And it's basically, that's the movie, is that he's a fake healer, and yet there's some form of divine intervention that actually begins to occur. And it's sort of up to you to read between the lines of like, okay, how is this happening? What is your belief in all of this? Because, and that's an old story. That one was written a long time ago. I'm the fake, Ghost. There's another movie for you. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg is the fake psychic who suddenly is confronted with the real life spirit of Patrick Swayze's character. Mm-hmm. And he's got some business to have her help attend to. It seems like a perfect choice to me. Someone who doesn't believe at all and yet is relying on the beliefs of others to enrich them their whole lives as a charlatan seems like the perfect person to say, hey, all this shit you've been doing, it is real. And so now it's time for you to find that out. So those are great stories.
You probably remember the infomercial wave in the 90s. It just seemed like I was so fascinated with those, even as a small child. I would watch, the Ronco food dehydrator just on repeats over and over and over again. And it just seemed like television at that time was really the way for people to reach the masses, right? This was before the internet. And you had, television networks like QVC, and you had all of these different, I think, time slots. It seemed like most of them were like Saturday early morning or like Sunday early morning. And I always remember this one guy, he was like, all you need is a newspaper and one telephone line. And I never remember, and you will make more money than your wildest dreams. But he never really like expanded beyond that. And of course, I didn't have a credit card because I was like 10. So I wouldn't be able to, I probably would have been dangerous at that point. But do you remember what that guy was all about?
I do remember that. I can't.
Was it real estate investing or?
I believe it was something like that. I have bashed Carlton Sheets on the program before. He was one of the infomercial guys who was out there selling his real estate program where you're sick and tired. I always love that. Even I wasn't. I'm about 10 years older than you, so. I'm watching those probably in my late teens and early 20s, but I'm still at the same time, the message is resonating clearly. I'm seeing through the bullshit, which is, the message is, are you tired of being treated like a poor sap when, who's renting and giving all this money to your landlord? Well, why don't you become the landlord and then have some poor sap pay you all the money? It's just like, I don't know that that's really the answer.
Just overnight. Yeah. No money down.
So it's like, I'm being beaten to a pulp every day by my oppressor. Would you like the whip to not to beat them, but to join them in beating someone else?
Yeah.
Well, that's maybe where they get the old saying, if you can't beat them, join them, right? I don't know. But yes, I remember the guy you're talking about. I certainly remember Amazing Discoveries with the little Bobby Hurley, sorry to make a basketball reference of all things, but the little Bobby Hurley lookalike guy, the British guy with the bow tie who would set the car hood on fire. And I had a whole routine in school about that one. And the guy that wore those sweaters, I actually have been buying a few of those 90s sweaters. I find that I'm in that 90s sweater phase.
Are you talking about like the Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air sweater? Like
I can't honestly remember that show well enough. I guess, the Cosby Show sweater. They call them grandpa sweaters.
Yeah.
Lots of colors. I like them because they're really colorful and intricate and stuff. But anyway, so I remember that one where they'd set the car hood on fire and then put it out. And immediately, by the way, it's like, well, let the thing burn for about 10 minutes. Let's see what happens. But no, they put it out. It's like, hey, Mike, I'm going to set the car on fire right now. There you go. And the audience would ooh and ah. And then, okay, now, and it's just like, well, no, let it burn for a little bit. Let it do some damage because all it does is burn off the alcohol, the accelerant that he used to start it with, the little line. And so then they'd put out the fire. And then suddenly it's, look, Mike, it protected it right then. It's just a car wax. It's like, what was it? Sam Kinison. He had a routine about that where he talked about flipping through the channels late at night and the guide said Amazing Discoveries. He's like, all right, this sounds pretty interesting. So I go over to it and, I'm sorry, but it says Amazing Discoveries. So I'm expecting like the dead speak, life on other planets. No, turns out all the guys learned how to do is how to wax a fucking car, and then he goes into his thing. So
in his loud voice. Well, and I think the thing that was so amazing to me when I was young was that it was so formulaic. It was like, it was identify problem, offer solution, show real people who are actually taking the solution and making it their way to success. And it was always like, these people were like, I put my money in my pocket at approximately $500,000 at closing. Yeah. And it's testimonials.
SMC. You remember SMC?
I don't remember SMC.
SMC, I believe that was hawked by, Oh, I'm not going to remember his name. It was the fellow who played the dad on Happy Days, though, I want to say. Tom Bosley, I think is his name. He was the guy who they got, the washed out celebrity, right, to host. And of course, it was somebody that America trusted too. It was one of those great American TV dads that we had. So apparently they couldn't get Alan Thicke. He wasn't available. So they went with Tom Bosley. And SMC was just a giant warehouse of Chinese crap. It was a bunch of, most of the stuff was those statuettes. It was tchotchkes. It's junk. It's like the stuff you go into the dollar store and see that the eagle, the plastic or the resin, the high quality resin eagle sculpture, or holding the American flag, or take your pick of all those sorts of things. And it was just, that's all it was. But you made, of course, thousands of dollars a week selling this to all of your friends and family, and then suddenly you grew a business out of it somehow as your territory spread. And I actually remember my brother had a friend who was not very bright at all, and they came over and, we all got the catalogs, and okay, so buy something from us, because they joined SMC. And I'm just thinking,
it was like a pyramid scheme.
I'm not sure that it was a pyramid scheme so much as it was just a scheme. It was just basically look, we're wholesalers basically for all of this junk, for all this stuff you could get at the Hallmark store. And the idea was that it came from China, and this was probably back before China was as renowned now for making all the plastic crap that we have as it is. So, they're getting it for a quarter on the dollar or less, a dime on the dollar. And then the idea was to sell your dear Aunt, Dottie, who's retired and has all this cash, this beautiful, rapturous eagle statue for the 4th of July that she'll be proud to put in her display case for like $95 or something. And you get, this big markup. So they're getting it for a nickel from China. You're buying it for $10. So they're already making a sweeping profit on you. And then you're supposed to mark it up for that suggested retail price that turns a dime for you.
Right.
It's that metric that they were trying to push. But yeah, SMC, I should look to see if it was actually Tom Bosley. I'm pretty sure it was Tom Bosley. Now I'm curious. But
and I kind of feel like there was a time when the made in China stuff was clearly crap. Like you would put it up against anything that was made domestically or even in other countries, and it was notably poor quality. Now I feel like there's definitely a better. They've improved.
It would seem so. Now, I can't, in looking just real quick, I can't find that SMC is even like the same company. There is an SMC, but they're a Japanese company that it says...
Check out Temu, Temu.
Oh, I know Temu. I've ordered from there.
Yeah, they're ones that are like big for like clickbait for me. Like I'll be looking at some shoes, and then all of a sudden this Temu... link will show up, and it's like, why spend $80 when you can only spend $10?
Yeah.
Temu.
And it was Tom Bosley, by the way. Wow. And there's something here that says a commercial was recorded on the day that he died. So, and people have the SMC thing up, and SMC Wholesale Direct Selling Network is what it's called. And it's just crap. Like I'm looking at a motorcycle statue, some little motorcycle thing, and but people buy that stuff, and
yeah.
So.
Well, and it kind of reminds me also of when we were in middle school, we were sent home in droves with these catalogs where we would try to get our family and closest neighbors and relatives to order all this crap, and a lot of times it was like wrapping paper and chocolate. And do you remember those days?
I do. I remember the books were actually the big one that they
or magazine subscriptions.
They had the books that came through, it seemed like, and you take it home to mom, and somebody shouldn't have been allowed because clearly it's a conflict of interest. Somebody passes through the school, they get some kind of handshake where it's just like, oh yeah, we'll help you market to our children.
Right.
And I hope that they aren't doing that anymore.
Or we'll buy the school a new pop machine, and in exchange, yeah, no, I remember this one guy coming to our school, and we had this big assembly with the entire school, and they like rolled out this bike. And everybody was like, wow, it's a bike. Yeah. And he's like, all you have to do is get 1,000 people to sign up for Home and Garden magazine. And I was like, piece of cake.
1,000 people.
I've already got 500 signed up.
Sure. Well, it reminds me of those back of the comic book days. Those are probably a little before your time.
Oh, yeah. Those were way before my time.
Yeah, you could send off a dollar, and a lot of times, you'd send cash in those days. You're never supposed to send cash in the mail even back then, or the Columbia House deal where you'd tape a penny, and there was stamps way back when. Of course, when the internet came along, the music club thing was around for a while, even during the internet years. But way back in the day, I remember when it was 8 tracks actually, and you like peeled the stamps off and stickered them onto the thing, and then taped your penny and sent it in, and they sent you
card.
12 8 tracks. I mean, but of course there's this contractual obligation that you unknowingly or unwittingly sign where you have to buy at least 5 of them for double retail price or something.
Oh yeah. I remember that. My dad got on the hook for many VHS videotapes due to that same kind of marketing strategy.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, circling back to things that are far more fascinating than just overt marketing strategies on late night television, maybe some of the healers and the psychics are all about trickery and treachery, but I do feel like there's a legitimacy to the phenomenon that is occurring nonetheless in most of those instances. So you have to be careful. I just did a story. We have a neighboring county, very large county here in our state, the largest county in the state, actually, as far as geographic size is concerned, but one of the most rural counties in the state actually at the same time. And the story goes that the sheriff's office there caught wind from the person who I guess kind of came to their senses, but it was after the fact. They'd gotten a phone call initially from someone posing as a sheriff's sergeant, and then subsequently calls from people posing as like the emergency dispatch, which I felt was a huge disconnect. Said they had some kind of a legal issue they needed to settle, and that to go down and put money in something called, now I'm not going to remember what it's called. It's like it's a vending machine for cryptocurrency, where you can actually exchange traditional legal tender, as I put in my article,
send Bitcoin to somebody
for cryptocurrency. But this person actually deposited $23,300 in cash in this machine because they called and said they had this legal issue. They had to clear it up. And oh, by the way, the machine was owned by the Justice Department. Apparently they told him that too. And so I guess they must have come to their senses, or somebody said, hey, I don't know about this, grandma or grandpa, where are the children, by the way, and all these things, what I always wonder. And so sheriff's office caught wind of it. They went down and actually got the money out of the machine. And so they were able to recover it. Now, they made in their statement the caveat that it's going to be tied up as part of a criminal investigation for quite a while. So they couldn't just hand it back to this person. They will get their $23,000 back eventually. But man, I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, and it happens every day, multiple times a day. And it's premised off of those kinds of enterprises that are absolutely 100% legal. And the reason I say that is because, of course, in terms of the paper trail, well, no, Jack, I mean, it's totally legal to sell that stuff. If people fall for it, they fall for it. Yeah, but the integrity is completely gone from the whole thing. And the people that devise those schemes, they have to know that. And if they don't, well, then they have no business being here on earth in this particular position to be able to do that. I mean, so to me, it's a derivative of the same thing when you're scheming and people are really not going to get 90% of your clientele are not going to sell those 1,000 subscriptions to Home and Garden magazine.
No.
I mean, I almost feel like I work for a company that's like that because, of course, instead of giving raises, they have this bonus structure that's based on how many clicks you get online.
Yeah, right.
And it's unachievable. There are people that in my office even that have achieved it, but then there are multiple asterisks that are placed next to that because the amount of the promised bonus is never what it was stated to be in the beginning because they dock you for this and dock you for that. So that's sadly the chintzy nickel and dime way the world works. Mm-hmm. So I don't see, me personally, I don't see too much of a stretch, too much of a difference between the scam that I just described to you, where someone deliberately posed as someone from law enforcement, to commit fraud and take $23,000 from somebody, and SMC, or a lot of these late night deals where sign up for this now and you can, I don't really see much of a difference there because people are desperate. And what they're getting more and more desperate. I mean, the desperation has been the chase for a lot of these extras. I want to live like the guy on the hill. I want to have all the toys that he or she does. I want to have all the stuff. I want to have the big house. I want to have, I crave the lifestyle that's just shoved at me constantly. That's becoming more and more unattainable. Now, though, with the shit really hitting the fan, you're starting to crave just the basics that used to be accessible that are getting more and more impossible. I mean,
well, you've heard about some of the schemes in regards to, this reminds me also of like even the dating sites and getting back to, just desperation. And there's so many people out there looking for answers, whether it's, their cure for paralysis or, their search for love. Dating sites have now become just full of fraudsters requesting money and, just trying to essentially scam people in hopes of a better future.
Well, I've never really done that whole thing before, or at least for very long, more than a couple of days. So I can't really speak to it. I mean, I've heard from people that the whole phenomenon, the glory days, I guess you could say, of the dating site is long gone. Because apparently in the beginning, when it was a brand new phenomenon and the world was a better place and the internet wasn't filled with quite so many schlocks that were trying to rip you off, I guess it was actually, pretty good times for people that were truly interested in hooking up. Well, maybe not hooking up. That's not the wrong, maybe that, but people that were interested in meeting other people for whatever purposes, getting to know them, finding connections, that it was great for that, but that not so much anymore, because most of what I've heard is that people are running into, the people aren't even real. This is another place where AI is. Yeah. Well, or they're not even attached to somebody that is a real person. I mean, you know what I mean? It's almost like these
bot profile.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like these this AI thing where it's just, taken off, and they are sorry, I'm looking at something that
Are you looking at your dating profile?
No, I wrote something. I was trying to find my file. I had written something some time ago about things that were irritating in dating profiles, but I'm not finding it now. But it's funny. I'm going to keep looking for it. So if I run across it, we can.
Anyway,
you can solder it in.
This kind of was something that I thought of when we were talking about people who are searching desperately for answers, and whether it's looking for romance or looking, to have just a better life in some way, shape, or form. It is sad. And unfortunately, I think that, the most vulnerable people in our society, often the elderly, fall victim to these. And I know that even one of my grandparents, he didn't fall victim to it, but he had the know-it-all to ask a few questions of, relatives and And they were like, no, that's a scam. You shouldn't be going to the bank and getting that money out because, and I think even more, like at my bank, you look at there's a sign right by the teller's window that says, if anybody's asking you to wire them money that you've only met on the internet, please don't, or it's probably a scam.
Well, it's really despicable. I mean, it's about as repugnant as it gets, if you ask me. I know I had a chance to work with an organization that deals with the elderly here in our area. This has been years ago. I was trying to host a radio thing for them, and it never took off, but it was really rewarding work for a while. And one of the things that I was privy to was some of the scammers that would call and target the elderly specifically because they're so trusting, and they're from a generation where it was just unheard of to really do those sorts of things. And so that's part of it. But another part of it was that, people of that age they don't have all their faculties. So they're not clinically suffering from dementia per se, but, they're not as sharp as they used to be, or I can't. I have such a soft spot for the elderly anyway, and I'm rapidly becoming one of them. So it makes perfect sense why I would feel like that, I guess. But, it is terrible, and it's rampant, and it's everywhere. And how people can do it is beyond me. But yeah, I mean, and I was also thinking about the amount of money involved in this particular case. $23,000. I mean, I don't have $23,000. I'll just, lay it out there. I don't have $23,000 just laying around that I could, go drop into an ATM machine, even if I wanted to fall for a scam like that. I mean, that would be a huge stretch for me. So I'm not saying this person could afford it. Obviously, nobody can afford to get scammed, but because you never know, this may have been the person's life savings for all we know. I mean, elderly people generally don't have that much money.
Well, there was this man, I was looking at the FBI's website, there was this man last year in April who was convicted of money laundering and embezzling. Anyway, he was able to get over about 40 victims, and he was based out of Ghana. So he had this enterprise set up in Ghana, and he received about $12 million from 40 victims, which, if you think about it, he was doing pretty good for $12 million from only 40 victims.
Yeah, I was just also reading about a fellow who been sentenced to federal prison for pandemic fraud, got $7 million in unemployment benefits from 25 different states during the pandemic. So the safeguards obviously are just not real good for some of these government payouts that happen, I guess. I was shocked that anybody would be able to get that much. But, our state, I think, was into the tune of hundreds of millions in fraud during that time. So, yeah, I mean, and it's so difficult, Michael, because when you don't, Jesus said it pretty bluntly, if I recall. If you're a thief, you're a thief, and that's it. And it doesn't mean that, God doesn't love you or forgive you, but the truth is the truth. If you're a thief, you're a thief, and if you're not, you're not. And it's difficult for people who are not thieves to relate to people who are. Mm-hmm. And I almost feel like that was kind of maybe the hidden idea behind saying that is, look, it's difficult for people who don't have this bent in life to just emerge and say, oh, yeah, I totally understand the criminal mind. I mean, this is kind of why the investigator is such an interesting colored bird here in the human experience, because they're good guys, theoretically, most of them, and yet they think like criminals do. They have to think like criminals do because that's who they're chasing. That's who they're trying to catch. And if you don't think like a criminal, as we all know from the greatest sleuths, even fictional, let alone real, you're not going to catch anybody. So it's kind of like those things. That's why we're so fascinated with getting into the mind of the serial killer, because, who's like that? Very thankfully, very few people are like that. And yet we need people to hunt them down, I guess, for lack of a better term. So, we need people to research them and to think like they do, or try to think like they do. So you can come up with the answers, but.
Well, and I think that during the pandemic, there was, what are those, PPP loans? And there was, not too long ago, a story of a family that actually created a bogus, it was like a bogus charity. And they had like hundreds of fake employees that they had made up so that they could receive all this money from the federal government. And, I think anytime you've got a program like that, again, it was rushed out so fast, and money was just kind of flowing left and right for anybody to raise their hand, it almost is like maybe we're almost asking this of ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, not that we deserve that, but at the same time, it's like, of course people are gonna take free money. I mean, it's just it's stupid to think that they wouldn't.
Yeah, I want to say that was part of the deal too, was that they, applied for those loans and gotten so many millions in those as well. But yeah, I mean, protecting oneself is harder and harder to do. And of course, in so many, I mean, this was a real remarkable case just because, they recovered the person's money, and that's very uncommon from what I understand, because I've done plenty of these cases and written about them, and they just they don't generally recover anything for people that's just gone. So
is it like a bogus ATM machine or something?
Well, I really honestly, even writing about it and researching it, don't entirely understand it. Apparently, it's a machine where you insert the money and it exchanges, as I said, what I called traditional legal tender for cryptocurrency. So my assumption is that the person who was scammed put this money into the machine and must have followed some kind of instructions to convert it into cryptocurrency for someone else. If not, then it's a repository for money where people can then come and pick it up, I guess. I really don't know. All I know is that there was $23,300 in cash, apparently, that was part of this, and it was in this machine, and the police managed to get a search warrant and retrieve it before it was gone. Mm-hmm. So, thank God for this person. Thank God for the fact that they were able to go do that for this person's sake, because, generally you're not going to see that again. Oh, look, I'm so sorry. I feel like I've been distracted here, even talking for the last 10 minutes, but I've been looking for this thing about dating profiles, and I found it, Michael. So I got to share. I got to share this.
Not to be confused with your dating profile, because you are a taken man.
Yes, I am, and like I said, I was spooked about that. To me, it's unnatural. To me, it's just, I appreciate meeting people organically. I feel like, I don't want to bash it across the board and say, because I know there are people that are happy. They'll come, we'll get letters and cards that say, I know what the hell you're talking about, Jack. I met a wonderful man online and we've been together 14 years. And okay. Hey, I'm not saying that it's certainly not possible and that's not your story. I'm just saying, to me, for me personally, it is not a thing. It just was never a thing because it feels forced and rushed and organic.
You're kind of old-fashioned that
inorganic.
way.
Yeah. I mean, I really like the way that I met my girlfriend. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way that you do it, because met her and really there were no, from my perspective, there was never an intent there at all. There was never I'm going to, now that's not what she contends on the other side, but that's okay.
Oh yeah. The way she spins it is, he was a predator. He was after me. He was chasing me for months.
That's not what she said. That's not what she said, at least. Maybe that's what she thought. Anyway, so no, it was just, it's get to know somebody. And, it took 8 months. And then it was just like, okay, I'm feeling like we might be able to hang out outside of work now. I'm going to go with this. So anyway, but I have to admit, I have investigated dating sites considerably over the years, because I remember thinking that, well, that's just, especially for someone like me who really, I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. So there goes 70% of the population. I don't like tattoos. There goes another 10. So we're narrowing the field really quickly.
You're starting to whittle down the pool fairly quickly.
Yeah, so when I became single again after 22 years and was in my mid-40s, I just thought, I'm interested. I'm not right away. I need to heal and have some time on my own. I haven't had any time on my own for years, but, there's definitely already an interest that's brewing. I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen here. So I definitely vetted the whole thing and asked people about it who'd been on them and who'd, I had one friend who I made who was quite promiscuous, which I am not, but she, fed me, oh, if you ever go on there, well, this is what you want to put, really lure in the girl. And then there was another female friend, acquaintance actually of mine, that found her dream man online and said, oh, this is what you want to say and this is what you want to don't. So anyway,
so you had some consulting.
I did.
Involved
I received,
in your profile.
I received consultation before ever trying it. And like I said, never materialized because it's just not for me. But in looking at a bunch of profiles of, other people out of curiosity, I did put together this list of things that really, it proves that it wasn't a good idea for me. These are things that I just called it my dating profile, but it generally has to do with other people's. So here's a few of the things that I wrote, if I can share. Things that I don't want to see. This is pretty much what it focuses on. And the first one is, any pictures of you jumping out of an airplane will revolt me. To think that one could actually be so reckless with the miracle of their own body in such a pathetic and desperate attempt to become or remain socially relevant. And it's true, because every other frickin' profile, here I am jumping out of an airplane.
Oh,
Look,
seriously?
I'll do it. Maybe it's always this. Maybe it's
I take
salacious.
risks.
Yeah, maybe it's
I'm
a
a risk
salacious
taker.
thing, a sexual thing. It's an innuendo about,
Interesting.
I'll jump out of an airplane. Guess what? I might jump on you. Maybe that's what it's supposed to say, but I hated it because it became so banal after a while. I was like, oh my God, not someone else jumping out of a fucking plane. You're crazy if you jump out of a plane. I don't care how many parachutes and backups are attached to you. You're nuts. You're not meant to jump out of something that's 20,000 feet off the
A
ground.
perfectly good airplane. Yeah, no, I don't understand if you're going to be opening the door into somebody's romantic relationship. I don't know that I would be opening with, I jump out of airplanes. I like to take risks.
I'm telling you, Michael, it was on half of the ones I saw.
See,
Somebody jumping out of an
to me,
airplane.
that tells me that person's really not that interested in this process, and they're almost doing it for kind of like they're just not too serious.
Yeah, but you're a thinking man. Wait, there's more. So Here's the next one. And please don't show me any images from your catalog of anatomically emblazoned artwork. That means tattoos. I will be equally disgusted with the thoughtless and dronish manner in which you've tagged the miracle of your beautiful skin with the graffiti of today's cultural iconography. The tats of your favorite NFL team's logo or some bullshit saying in Latin that you pulled from the vacant script of a Twilight movie make me nauseous and completely sorry for your pitiful follower ass. As you can tell, I'm not a big fan of tattoos. And it's not that I don't necessarily, like my girlfriend has a small tattoo. I think it's great. And I've seen well-placed, minimalistic tattoos on the beach before on, women.
Some of them are tasteful. Yeah.
They are. But to me, it's a sheepish thing for so many people. I have them because everybody else started getting them. And I can't stand that. That's just so anti-me. And so many of these people, it's like purposefully I'm angling the camera so you can see that I've got ink on this arm or this leg. I mean, and why wouldn't they? These people spend thousands of dollars on these things. So
how much does a tattoo really cost?
They're expensive.
Really?
Like, from what I've been told, if you want to get like a piece, like there was a mail carrier who I knew. I guess I still know her, but she doesn't deliver the mail where I work anymore. She used to deliver the mail where I worked. You worked there when she delivered the mail there, I think, because we worked together in that same place where she delivered the mail. Okay. Anyway, she delivered the mail there where we used to work together.
Yeah.
And she started getting a tattoo, and it was some like wolf finds thing.
Like a symbol or something?
It was all over her arm.
Okay.
And I remember she had to do it in stages. And I recall asking her one time, like, so how much is this setting you back? And I want to say she said, well, it's going to be like this much in so many installments or whatever. It added up to like $1,700.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea.
Yeah. And I think that's actually cheap. If you want to get larger pieces, I think they can even run more. And it also depends on who's doing the work. If it's a really renowned artist,
they kind of name their own price.
It's like having a Monet on your wall. If you're a Monet of tattooing, well, then you get. So look, I mean, and I know maybe I just offend a lot of people, piss them off. It's a personal thing. It's a preference.
Tattoos are your thing, that's great.
I don't fancy tattoos. If you want to put them on your body, that's great. But to me, your skin, it's your largest organ after all. So I'm not a fan of, to me, that's what clothes are for. And they make henna and like removable tattoos so you can wear it for a while. It's the permanency of it that bothers me.
Well, I don't really have any kind of a symbol to me that would probably be something that I would really want to flaunt like that and be like, oh, look what I did to myself, that kind of a thing. And so I would have a hard time choosing, first off. Secondly, we were out the other day somewhere, and I told my wife, I was like, that lady had amazing artwork. Did you see that tattoo that she had? Like, I almost said something.
She wants you to, trust me.
It was that impressive. Like, I almost was like, that is a sick tattoo.
Yeah, because if you're like not an interesting person at all, then that's a perfect backup for you, right? It's like, well, nobody's going to like my personality, so I'll get this giant squid kraken thing on my
But to
arm.
some degree, it was almost like, wow, like that to me was impressive. And I kind of feel like to some degree, maybe like it takes a lot of thought behind that, right?
You started to go down, and you almost hit the nail right on the head that I used to talk about when I was younger, because when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I had I wanted to look like the lead singer from Europe, Joey Tempest. So I grew my hair out and frosted it blonde and had it permed. And and I had the chains and everything. I used to get mistaken I was tall and skinny. So I used to get mistaken for a girl from behind all the time. It was fabulous. I had so much fun with it. But that was always one of the questions it was just like, Jack, you've got the hair, you've got the leather moto. I mean, you're just a rocker. Where are the tattoos? When are you going to get piercings and tattoos? And piercings, I said, I have enough holes in my body already. I don't need any more to tend to. Thank you very much. And tattoos was always, there is nothing that cool that belongs on me permanently.
I would have a hard time.
There is nothing so cool in the world that I have seen visually that belongs on my skin permanently for the rest of my life. Now, I designed a tattoo that was on my sister. My sister had a couple of tattoos. And I guess the one I designed was on a character that I had already drawn years ago that she always really favored. And so I took that character and designed him specifically for her tattoo. And it was an anthropomorphic kumquat. It was. I'll show you a picture of him. He was a series of different vegetable and fruit people. Before VeggieTales came out, I drew these, just FYI. Not that it wasn't somebody else didn't do it.
Maybe we'll have to post it on the X account.
Yeah, I called him the Gerbers, but basically he was Kumquat Man, just for lay people. And he was dressed in snow camo and had like Ray-Bans on. And yeah, Kumquat Man. He was really cool. So
what was his superpower?
He didn't have, he's just a kumquat doing militaristic things.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's impressive. Don't get me wrong.
This was before I became as anti-military as I was. I would never draw something like that today. All right. So going back to my list of things that caught my goat when I was looking at dating profiles, here's the next one. Next, if you're wearing sunglasses in any of your pics, move on. Your eyes are the only clue I have, even in the stillness of a digitized reproduction, to what might lie beneath the distraction of your exterior haughtiness. So do you really think I'd rather see what my potential life partner looks like while masquerading as just another douche waiting in line for an $18 mouse-eared corn dog, at Disneyland? No, I don't think so. That means I want to see your eyes. I don't want to see...
I want to see your soul.
It was unbelievable, though. Every single picture. It was just like the woman would have 5 or 6 pictures all in sunglasses. I'm just thinking to myself, is there something wrong with your eyes?
Maybe she's cross-eyed.
Do you have those scary woman eyes? Those like crazy eyes? Like, not to pull an Orange is the New Black, but I mean, do you have those eyes? Like nobody like, oh.
Like the ones where, what is it? The thyroid issue where their eyes are like this all the time. I actually worked with somebody who had that and it was sad, but.
All right.
If only we recorded these so people could see my eyes right now.
Maybe I shouldn't read this next one. It's pretty nasty. So,
well, did you get any hits off of this profile? I mean, I would imagine that the hits were pretty limited.
Like I said, I never posted this because I never actually did it. So, but these were just the things that I noted. Okay, here there's 2 more. We'll go through these 2 more. I'll skip this one because it was. It's even a little bit too curmudgeon for me. So here's the next one. It says, and about your answers in the bucket list Q&A section. If you wrote swim with dolphins, then the Barbie doll that you've got shoved where has been up there for far too long. It's time for her to get out. Look, I've done it, but didn't seek it. It just happened. Swim with dolphins, that is. I consider it no less a blessing than when a bobbing quail darts across the road in front of my car, or a spindly spider glides down a cord of silk from the ceiling above my shower to say hello. Take the jumper cables you've hardwired from your television and attach to each of your boobs and wake up to the miracles that exist in all things, not just those which have been dredged in the fairy dust of someone else's ulterior designs. And that's not to say that dolphins aren't phenomenal. They are. But every single woman... what do you want to do before you die? Swim with dolphins. I'm just thinking to myself, I've done it. I've swam with dolphins, and it wasn't like a planned excursion. I was in the Gulf of Mexico and swam with dolphins. They came up. And
it was a natural happening. This wasn't something that you went to a camp and.
It was fine, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm swimming with dolphins. I mean, it was just like, hey, there's some dolphins over here. That's neat. But I enjoyed all of the fish and the Molly Millers and the eels that we saw and the barracuda that I saw the one time. It was just kind of chilling on the shoal, like, hey, how you doing? And then as soon as I looked at him, he was gone. I mean, I think about the time that I was swimming under the water, and I actually got caught up in a school of, I don't know if they were mackerels or anchovies, but they were one of those little, small, super reflective fishes, really shiny. And just all of a sudden, I was surrounded in this giant school of fish, these reflective fish. To me, I enjoyed that more than the dolphins, but I'm not trying to play favorites with the universe's wonderful creations. I'm just saying that for me, that was neater actually than the dolphins. But God, it's just, so again, to me, it's banality. It's just like, I want to do it because it's what Barbies showed me to want to do my whole life.
It is kind of a unicorn moment.
It's an enormous unicorn moment, and it annoyed me in an adult woman over and over again when I'm looking around thinking, oh my God, this is what I'm down to in life. I'm literally I'm going to be alone forever. So one last thing. And to me, this was almost...
Leave us on a positive note, will you, Jack? Come on.
No, I can't. I can't. But I'm going to read this exactly how I wrote it because I'm a straight up guy.
Yeah, you are.
And there's enough Bill Hicks in me that there's got to be enough people that are still like good old Uncle Bill that they'll appreciate this. Now, about your dog. Look, I'm going to keep this simple. I think it's great that you have a dog. I love dogs too. And one picture that depicts you with your pooch among at least a half dozen others is totally fine with me. But let's be clear on something straight away. I don't want to fuck your dog. I might, however, be interested in fucking you someday. So please, don't show me 10 shots of your dog and one of you, probably with your dog, no doubt. I get it, okay? I catch on fast. You're fully acclimated to being single and are probably letting me know that you already fucked your dog. But I'm not interested in adding myself to the unneutered ranks of your bedroom dog pile, okay? Perhaps this is your way of letting the men on this site know that you like it doggy style. Whatever the case, I only have a milk bone to go around for one, and I won't be putting it in your dog's mouth over yours. So stop showing me all these pictures of your dog.
Oh my gosh. He wasn't talking about you. Just go about your business. Thank you. We're getting looks.
I'm serious,
We're
Michael.
getting looks again.
11 pictures, and it's like they're all of the dog. And it's not like she's not in them. It's like just the dog. And it's like, I understand you own a dog. I think, like I said, that's great. Where are you in all of this? You know, are you going to matter in this at all? Like when am I call?
Sometimes
if I call you up to try to meet, am I going to get, woo, woo? I mean, am I going to be talking to your dog?
Well, I've noticed this about people who have children too, where I kind of think that at some point in our lives, we throw away our own identity and we hide behind these things that everyone in our position has. Like, I've noticed this with my parents, it's the grandkids. Oh yeah, it's all about the grandkids. And then, when you're a parent, it's all about the kids, isn't it? Yeah. We got the kids in this and we got the kids in that. And next week we're going to be going down so Zuzu can run around on a mat in Las Vegas. She's going to a gymnastics convention. Oh, really? Zuzu? Wow. So how old is she? Yeah, she's 5. Oh, wow, she must be really advanced. Yeah, she's got this whole routine and everything. I mean, like, people seriously go out of state to take their kids to these conventions so that Zuzu can get a participation ribbon.
Yeah, I know. It's what people do. And like I said, I love dog. We've gone over this dog thing before once on the podcast, I think, in some measure. And dogs are wonderful. All animals are wonderful. There's no question. But I feel like they're superseding, like, the entire human personality. Again, it's kind of like the tattoo. It's like, well, I'm a completely disinteresting person, and I know that about myself somehow innately already. I have nothing to share with the world at all, but I have this fabulous tattoo. You seen it?
Would you like to see it?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like getting my boobs done wouldn't be worth the money because my face is already so horrible, so I'm going to get a tattoo instead because that seems to be the way the winds are blowing anyway. I mean, it's all the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's the fake breasts or it's the tattoo or it's the dog. It's just like something else is in the way of you. And maybe that's why we're so sad. Maybe that's why the world's in the state that it's in, is because we've forgotten how remarkable we can actually be. But we have to try. There has to be a little bit of effort that you put forth to being a decent person, to being a person that, and let's face it, there have always been boring people. There have always been Ben Steins that are just there, but they find love just the same, because they find it on different merits, I suppose, maybe than people who are more extraordinary or lavish or they're risk takers. But when I see, again, when every other picture, when you can look at 20 profiles and half of them are jumping out of an airplane, to me, there's something wrong with that picture. How many people, and I know, but say the internet was a thing in the 50s and yet the standards of Americana hadn't changed. All right, Betty, you get to put 6 pictures up online. Now make them count, and the agency said, how many people are going to be jumping out of a fucking airplane? I know that maybe people didn't do it as much then, but even if they could, it's a show. It's a look at, I felt bad for them because it was clearly an opportunity for them to, as I said, look relevant socially in the face of a world that they weren't comfortable with. I would guarantee you 9 out of 10 of those women who you saw jumping out of the airplane didn't want to do it. They did it because all their friends did it, and they said, oh, yeah, now you can take the picture and put it on your thing, and maybe you can meet a guy who'll treat you right. When really every man in the world should be ready to treat anybody right, whether they're a man, woman, or otherwise.
So we used to have this UPS guy who'd come into the office. Every once in a while, he'd like to stop and, just chat. Like, I feel like that was a thing of the past, though. Like UPS guys, they always just seemed to kind of come in and chat. It was like Oh, hey, Larry's here. Hey, Larry, how's it going? Yeah, the kids really, the kids got chicken pox, and one of them's got chicken pox right on his eye. Have you ever had chicken pox on your eyeball? No, I haven't, Larry. It sounds pretty bad. Yeah, it's real bad. And so the UPS guy would always come in and chat, and he was way into airplanes. And then he was like, you should get your pilot's license, and you could do this and that. And hey, my son, he's way into to parachuting and skydiving. Yeah, he's way into skydiving. I was like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to try that. And then the whole idea of like having to be strapped to somebody else. Yeah. You have to have so many jump hours before you can actually jump out and pull your own string. Yeah, they don't let you do that the first time. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't really want to be attached to another man. I just kind of feel like the whole like picture moment just might not look so great when I'm attached to this other dude who like has me in this like harness like I'm his child. And we're jumping out of an airplane together. I just don't find that a fun idea. But yeah, no, Larry was great for those kind of stories.
Did Playgirl ever make a Men of UPS calendar? Because
I'm sure Larry would be in it.
That was always, remembering the UPS guy from back in the day, that was always the case. Was the UPS guy was always, all the women wanted, they fantasized about a quick, coffee break with the UPS guy when he'd come in. Because they always hired these studs. They always hired these like, wow, these guys are like, and men, of course, there's that traditional thing with homophobia. They don't want to admit that another man's attractive, but it was like, damn.
Oh yeah, I know this guy kind of looked like Burt Reynolds. He kind of had a mustache, and he'd come in and, just kind of chew the fat every once in a while. And I was thinking to myself, man, how many hours does he spend a day just chatting to people? And it was part of his job. I mean, he loved it.
Yeah. Well, they get paid pretty well from what I understand. And to me, the litmus for like being a chiseled spectacle was the brown. It's just like, if anybody can look good in that uniform, then they are doing something right, whether it's innately or at the gym or whatever. So, touche, more to them, but yeah, I'm sure Playgirl got around to a Men of UPS or the drivers of UPS. I'll let him drive me into the mattress any day. Yeah.
The Men of Brown. Did we find ourselves at a Gore concert again? Yes.
Gwar. Have you ever heard Gwar?
Dark Master. Oh, yes, I have.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if you've heard Gwar, this isn't Gwar.
Well, but
Megan Long is Gwar.
I had a roommate who, he was way into it.
Oh, the college roommate who was into Gwar.
He played on the university rugby team and decided that it would be a good idea to go to a Gwar concert in the big city. Let's just say he was never the same when he came back.
I have a friend who went to a Gwar concert and sat way in the back and still got a bunch of shit all over him from the stage show.
Yeah, they like spit blood over everybody, and it's kind of a thing.
There's all kinds of fake fluids that are exchanged in that one. Sleazy P. Martini is their manager, by the way. Maybe he's the guy that interviews for the Wienermobile driving job.
I think that's the guy who probably gives you the keys to the Wienermobile.
And it's all gassed up, ready to go. Have fun. Tell you what, I got a great trick for you, too. When you get to the Holland Tunnel, put it in reverse and then go forward, and then put it in reverse and go forward, and put it in reverse and go forward. You'll love it.
Until we meet again.
Bye.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.